They say everything has a price, but eBay proved nothing is too stupid to sell. From bottled farts to haunted furniture, this is capitalism's final boss fight. Pure chaos, zero dignity, and 100% real transactions. By the end, you won't know what's worse: the sellers, the buyers, or how much you'd secretly bid yourself. 1. A 10-year-old grilled cheese sandwich, which supposedly had the Virgin Mary's face seared onto it, sold for $28,000. Someone paid the price of a brand new car for a fossilized holy sandwich. I guess one person's miracle is another person's incredibly expensive, moldy lunch. 2. A guy in Arkansas claimed a ghost was haunting him, so he did the logical thing, trapped it in a jar, and sold it on eBay. He specifically warned the buyer not to open it. The winning bid was a little over $50. Honestly, that seems like a pretty low price for eternal damnation. 3. Remember Justin Timberlake's half-eaten French toast from a 2000 radio interview? Of course you don't. But one superfan with way too much disposable income paid $1,025 for it. That's right, $1,000 for some cold, celebrity-slobbered, syrupy bread. What a time to be alive. 4. One user claimed to have discovered the true meaning of life and put his discovery up for auction. For the bargain price of $3.26, someone became the proud new owner of, well, who knows? The seller probably just mailed them a receipt and a shrug. 5. In 2005, a man auctioned off his forehead as ad space for 30 days. An online casino paid him $37,000 to get their name tattooed on his face with temporary ink. He was literally a walking, talking pop-up ad. I wonder if his friends tried to install an ad blocker on him. 6. Two sisters from Virginia found a single cornflake that looked remarkably like the state of Illinois. So they put it on eBay. A collector of trivia memorabilia bought the single state-shaped piece of breakfast cereal for $1,350. That's a lot of money for a carb. 7. Someone put the entire town of Bridgeville, California up for sale. The listing included 8 houses, a post office, and a cemetery. It sold for $1.77 million before the buyer backed out. I guess buyer's remorse just hits different at the municipal level, doesn't it? 8. A Ziploc bag, allegedly containing air from a Kanye West concert, was put up for auction. The bidding somehow reached a staggering $60,000 before eBay administrators finally stepped in and took the listing down. Imagine explaining that credit card charge to your spouse. 9. If you thought the French toast was weird, get this. A wad of chewing gum, supposedly spat out by Britney Spears, sold for $14,000. The seller even provided photos of her chewing it as proof. Some people don't just want a piece of their idol. They want their saliva-soaked leftovers. 10. After a nasty divorce, a man named Ian Usher put his entire life up for sale as a single package. The winning bid of over $300,000 got the buyer his house, his car, his job, and even an introduction to his friends. It was basically a midlife crisis starter pack. 11. A supposedly possessed rubber duck was sold for over $100. The seller claimed the demonic bath toy made his son stronger and more aggressive after playing with it. That's one way to outsource your child's discipline problems to the highest bidder, I guess. 12. William Shatner sold his kidney stone for $25,000. All the money went to a housing charity, making it the grossest and most noble thing ever sold. Captain Kirk was boldly going where no gallstone had gone before, and someone paid handsomely to own the evidence. 13. One user auctioned off his imaginary friend, named John Malipieman. The listing promised he was in good health and a great listener. It sold for nearly $3,000. I'd love to see the shipping confirmation for that one. Does imagination qualify for next-day air? 14. A Dorito chip shaped almost perfectly like the Pope's hat was found by a family and put on eBay. The online casino Golden Palace, known for buying weird stuff, snatched it up for $1,209. I bet it was considered a nacho-ly sacrament. 15. Scarlett Johansson blew her nose into a tissue on The Tonight Show, and the snot-filled souvenir later sold for $5,300. The money went to charity, but still, some person is the proud owner of a celebrity's preserved cold germs. That's dedication. 16. A painting known as The Hands Resist Him, famous for being allegedly haunted, sold for over $1,000. The sellers claimed the figures in the painting would move at night. So you're not just buying art, you're buying a potential home invasion by tiny, creepy children. 17. Someone from Australia tried to sell the entire country of New Zealand, starting the auction at just 1 Australian cent. Bidding actually reached $3,000 before eBay officials stepped in and shut it all down. Imagine the nerve of trying to flip a whole nation for profit. 18. After cheating on his girlfriend, a man auctioned off his 3 remaining adultery redemption points. The buyer paid $51 to have the seller perform chores to win back his girlfriend's trust. So he paid to watch another guy's relationship drama play out in real time. 19. A 1999 Volkswagen Golf, once owned by Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger before he became Pope Benedict XVI, sold for nearly $250,000. It was literally a regular old car, but with a divine ownership history. Apparently, that adds about $245,000 of value. 20. A single strand of Justin Bieber's hair, gifted to Ellen DeGeneres, was encased in a signed box and auctioned off for over $40,000. That's a down payment on a house for a single follicle that was probably just shed during a commercial break. 21. A slice of cake from Prince William and Kate Middleton's wedding sold for $7,500 years after the ceremony. For that price, you'd expect a piece of history, but what you get is a fossilized, inedible piece of royal fruitcake. Enjoy looking at it, I guess. 22. 4 guys in Australia put a weekend of beer, shenanigans, and good times with them up for auction. The winning bid was over 1,300 Australian dollars. It was basically a listing to rent some new best friends who promised to be a blast. What could possibly go wrong? 23. A paper cup with a few drops of water supposedly left behind by Elvis Presley at a 1977 concert sold for $455. It's not holy water, people, it's just backwash from the king. Some fans will literally buy anything. 24. A man listed a completely broken laser pointer, providing a long, hilarious story about all the ways he'd tried to destroy it. The auction became an internet sensation, and the useless piece of junk sold for over $400. People weren't buying the item, they were buying the story. 25. Someone in Nashville decided to capture a fart from one of his well-fed hipster roommates in a jar and sell it. The description was a masterpiece of absurdity. Bidding actually reached $84 before eBay finally decided they didn't want to be the marketplace for bottled gas. 26. The actual toilet of reclusive author J.D. Salinger was sold for a cool $1 million. The seller claimed it was uncleaned and could still contain his DNA. So, some anonymous millionaire now owns a used porcelain throne, possibly hoping to channel the spirit of the Catcher in the Rye during their morning constitution. 27. A single flamin' hot Cheeto that vaguely resembled the deceased gorilla Harambe sold for $99,900. Yes, you heard that right. Someone paid nearly $100,000 for a spicy, zoo animal-shaped corn puff. That single Cheeto is probably the most successful member of its entire family. 28. A grandfather's ghost cane, supposedly haunted by his spirit, was put up for auction by his grandchildren. They claimed the cane would move on its own and that grandpa's ghost would get angry if you made fun of his favorite TV shows. It sold for $65,000 to an online casino. 29. A pregnant woman from Indiana sold advertising space on her baby bump for $500. A company paid to have their logo painted on her belly for a month, turning her into a human billboard for the 3rd trimester. You have to wonder if the baby was born with a strange affinity for that brand. 30. In 2021, a McDonald's Chicken McNugget that bore a striking resemblance to a character from the video game Among Us sold for $99,997. Someone paid the price of a luxury sports car for a 2-year-old piece of processed chicken. That's just suspicious. 31. A woman in Utah listed her used wedding dress with a hilariously bitter and detailed description of her ex-husband's failings. The story behind the dress went viral, and people started bidding just to support her. The dress, a symbol of a failed marriage, sold for over $3,000. 32. A man in the UK claimed he found a mummified fairy corpse and put it on eBay. Despite it being a clear hoax made from string and other craft supplies, the creepy little thing sold for nearly 300 British pounds. Some people just really want to believe in magic, even if it looks like a school project. 33. A 20-year-old student from Washington successfully sold his soul for $400. The winning bidder was an Iowa woman who ran a Christian outreach ministry. He claimed he'd send a certificate of ownership in a jar. No word on if the devil filed a competing offer or if there's a return policy. 34. A bottle of water, scooped from a puddle outside the Vatican during a rainstorm, was sold for over $190. The seller claimed the puddle had been blessed by the tires of the Pope's car driving through it. That's one way to turn a pothole into a holy prophet. 35. Someone listed a genuine UFO metal detector, which was really just a cheap stud finder with some aluminum foil and a coat hanger glued to it. The description was so absurdly confident that it sold for $66. The buyer probably uses it to find alien signals in his toast. 36. The entire ghost town of Albert, Texas, was put up for sale on the site in 2007. The listing included a dance hall, a tavern, and a tractor shed. An Austin-based real estate broker bought the whole thing for $2.5 million. It's the ultimate fixer-upper, assuming you don't mind ghosts as neighbors. 37. A man named JasonHeadsets.com sold the rights to his own last name to a headset company. He legally changed his name and got paid nearly $50,000. For that price, he became a walking, talking advertisement for the rest of his life. His kids will have an interesting time in school. 38. A handcrafted, custom-fitted suit of steel armor for a guinea pig was listed and sold for over $1,150. The best part? The entire sum was donated to a guinea pig rescue charity. So your little pet could be ready for the Battle of Hastings while also saving its brethren. 39. A latex mask, advertised as being a replica of Casey Anthony's face, sold for nearly $1 million after a bidding war. The seller described it as a mask of a real-life monster. It's one of the darkest and most morbidly successful auctions in eBay history. 40. One person managed to sell a single, used Bratz doll shoe. Not a pair, just the one tiny plastic high heel. It sold for $5.50. After shipping and fees, the seller probably made about $1. You have to admire the sheer, unadulterated commitment to selling absolute junk. 41. Singer James Blunt couldn't get his sister to a funeral in Ireland, so he jokingly auctioned her off on eBay. A man with a private helicopter won the bid, flew her there, and 3 years later, they got married. He literally sold his sister into a happy marriage. Best wingman ever? 42. A woman in Florida sold her used positive pregnancy test for $25. The listing was allegedly marketed towards women who wanted to trap their significant others. So for the price of a cheap dinner, someone bought a lifetime of lies and potential resentment. What a bargain! 43. The original 1923 Hollywoodland sign was put on eBay after being replaced in the 70s. A nightclub promoter bought the entire 45-foot-tall landmark for $450,000. He basically paid $500,000 for the world's largest and most famous piece of scrap metal. 44. A group of guys in England put their sad and single friend up for auction as a date. The winning bid was only £7, but it was from a woman who actually went out with him. No word on if a second date happened, but it's one hell of a how we met story to tell the grandkids. 45. The giant hot dog that the band Fish famously rode over their audience on New Year's Eve 1994 was sold on eBay. It was bought by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yes, a giant flying concert wiener is now considered a priceless artifact of American music history. Let that sink in. 46. A painting called The Crying Boy was sold as being cursed. The urban legend claims the painting mysteriously survives house fires while everything else around it burns to ash. So people were willingly paying to bring an allegedly haunted, fire-starting ghost child portrait into their homes. 47. A man found a rotting, bizarre-looking creature on a beach and immediately listed it as a dead sea monster. Bidding soared to over $150,000 before eBay pulled it. The creature was later identified as just a decaying raccoon. Someone almost paid six figures for a soggy trash panda. 48. Actor. Guy Pearce sold his 1997 Holden Commodore, but was brutally honest in the ad, describing it as full of dings, dents, and strange smells. The winning bid was over $13,000, proving that celebrity ownership can make even a beat-up, smelly old car seem glamorous. 49. An exasperated Icelandic man put the entire country of Iceland up for auction, helpfully noting that the singer Björk is not included. Bidding reached £10 million before eBay shut it down. Apparently, he was just fed up with the nation's financial crisis. Sometimes you just gotta sell a country to vent. 50. A man from Arizona sold a box of gently used tissues from his recent cold, claiming they were perfect for faking a sick day at work. The box of biohazardous lies actually sold for $77. Someone paid almost $80 just to get out of a shift at Applebee's. 51. A single frozen pea, allegedly from the dinner plate of a British politician, sold for £1,400, which is nearly $2,000 US. A Texan businessman bought it. What do you even do with that? Do you frame it? Do you eat it and absorb its political power? 52. The city of Coventry in England listed an entire bridge on eBay, hoping a company would pay to put its name on it as a sponsorship. Bidding reached £10,000, but the winner was a prankster who never paid up. The city ended up with $0 and a very embarrassing public story. 53. A listing for a canned unicorn meat became a viral sensation. The hilarious description promised it was an excellent source of sparkles and came in an easy open can. It's obviously a gag gift, but hundreds of people paid real money for the joke, proving you can sell anything with magical marketing. 54. A man from Australia listed his air guitar for sale with the killer description, "I have never played it, so it is in mint condition." It actually sold for $20 Australian. The buyer paid real currency for absolutely nothing, and the seller probably just mailed them an empty box. Pure genius. 55. A man from Florida put his own liver up for auction, with bidding somehow reaching $5.7 million. Unsurprisingly, eBay had to yank the listing because, selling your own internal organs is highly illegal. A bold strategy to pay off your mortgage, but not one your doctor would recommend. 56. A woman from Arkansas sold the official naming rights to her unborn child. The winning bidder, the online casino goldenpalace.com, paid a whopping $15,000 for the privilege. Her son was then legally named goldenpalace.com Silverman. Just imagine that poor kid's first day of school. 57. A haunted Jewish wine cabinet, known to the internet as the Dybbuk box, was sold on eBay. The seller claimed it caused horrifying nightmares and strange paranormal events for anyone who owned it. The director of a medical museum bought it for $280, and it later inspired a Hollywood horror movie. 58. A single laptop, intentionally loaded with 6 of the most dangerous and destructive computer viruses in history, was sold as a piece of art. The final price for this digital Pandora's box was an unbelievable $1.3 million. For that, you get a machine that can't even connect to Wi-Fi without risking global cyber Armageddon. 59. A man in England auctioned off the right to choose a new middle name for himself. After a fierce bidding war, the winning name was "I am an idiot." He legally changed it, and the certificate of proof was sold for nearly $200. Some people will do literally anything for a laugh and a few bucks. 60. A user auctioned off what he insisted were the original functional blueprints for a working time machine. He provided no real proof, just a bunch of cryptic diagrams and a promise of adventure. It sold for a mere $25. The buyer is probably now stuck in last Tuesday, trying to find his car keys. 61. The actual bus from the movie Into the Wild, where Christopher McCandless famously lived and died, was sold to a museum in Alaska. Before it was removed for safety reasons, it was a dangerous pilgrimage site. Now, you can just pay museum admission to see the world's most depressing, iconic Winnebago. 62. An artist listed and sold an invisible work of art, which was literally just an empty space on a wall in a gallery. The listing promised a unique conceptual experience. It sold for over $10,000. The buyer even left a glowing review saying, "The air is just so much more artistic now." 63. A man in North Carolina had his leg amputated due to a plane crash, but decided to keep it. After it was professionally preserved, he sold it on eBay. The buyer turned it into a leg for a lamp, just like the one from the movie A Christmas Story. Nothing says "home sweet home" like furniture made from a stranger's limb. 64. A Minnesota student tried to auction off his vote in the 2008 presidential election. Bidding actually surpassed $10,000 before eBay and the local authorities came knocking. He learned a valuable lesson. If you're going to commit a federal crime, maybe don't advertise it on the internet's largest flea market. 65. An indie rock band sold their giant 25-foot inflatable lobster stage prop named Pinchy. The winning bid was over $3,000. Imagine having to explain to your neighbors why you now have a crustacean the size of a school bus deflating slowly in your front yard. 66. The entire state of Rhode Island was put up for sale by a prankster. The listing described it as a great fixer-upper with ocean views. Bidding reached a ridiculous $10 million before eBay administrators, who apparently have no sense of humor, removed the auction from the site. 67. One of the original Apple I computers, hand-built by Steve Wozniak in Steve Jobs' garage, was sold on eBay for $1.5 million. It was essentially a wooden box with a motherboard. For that price, you could buy a new high-end computer every single year for the rest of your life. 68. An entire decommissioned U.S. missile silo complex in upstate New York was sold on eBay for $2.1 million. The buyer got a 52-acre property with an underground bunker designed to withstand a nuclear blast. It's either the ultimate doomsday prepper's dream home or the world's most expensive man cave. 69. One user assembled and sold a deluxe exorcism kit. It included a wooden crucifix, a bottle of holy water that was probably from a tap, and a step-by-step guide he printed from the internet. It sold for $99. Someone paid $100 for a box of stuff you could find at a dollar store in a library. 70. A used toothbrush, allegedly belonging to a member of the boy band One Direction, was auctioned off and sold for over $3,000. That means someone paid the price of a decent used car to own an item that was last seen scraping plaque off a celebrity's teeth. That's a whole new level of fan devotion. 71. A fully functional McDonnell Douglas FA-18 Hornet. Fighter jet was listed for auction. Bidding actually reached $5 million before eBay. Officials had to step in and politely remind everyone that you can't just sell military-grade weaponry online. Apparently, you need more than a good PayPal account to start your own Air Force. 72. The giant brown Vivienne Westwood hat that Pharrell Williams wore to the 2014 Grammys was put on eBay. It became an instant meme for looking like the Arby's logo. So naturally, the fast food chain themselves bought it for a staggering $44,100. All for a good cause, of course. 73. A man sold his supposedly haunted 1996 Ford Explorer, claiming it had a mind of its own. He said the doors would lock and unlock, the horn would honk at random, and the radio would change stations. It sold for a few $100. The buyer probably just got a standard Ford with a bad electrical system and a great backstory. 74. A British college student famously listed her virginity to pay for her tuition fees. Bidding reportedly reached over $13,000 before eBay administrators shut the auction down, citing their strict policy against selling human bodies and their parts. It turns out your innocence is considered a non-sellable body part. Who knew? 75. Someone sold a professional-grade ghost detector, which was, in reality, just an old AM radio with a bent coat hanger attached as an antenna. The seller claimed the static between stations was actually the whispering voices of spirits. It sold for over $50 to a buyer who was apparently very eager to listen to paranormal talk radio. 76. After Kevin Hart's near-fatal car accident, the completely wrecked 1970 Plymouth Barracuda he was in was put up for auction. Bidding for the mangled piece of automotive history and celebrity tragedy reached over $65,000. It wasn't just a car, it was a four-wheeled, high-priced cautionary tale. 77. A seller in Texas listed a slightly used coffin, explaining that his great-grandfather had been buried in it for a short time before being moved to a different plot. He assured potential buyers it was still in good condition. So, for a discounted price, you could own a pre-owned human container with very, very low mileage. 78. A used pregnancy test, allegedly found in the hotel trash can of Britney Spears, was sold for over $5,000. Someone paid the price of a decent vacation to own a piece of plastic that may or may not have been peed on by a pop star. The dedication of some fans is both impressive and deeply unsettling. 79. One user created and sold a Get Out of Hell free card, guaranteeing its authenticity because he was a former demon. The card, which was just a laminated piece of paper, sold for about $15. That seems like an incredibly low price for eternal salvation, suggesting that Hell's economy might be in a recession. 80. An exact custom-made replica of the iconic lumpy brown couch from The Simpsons was sold for over $2,000. The seller even included a non-functional prop television set to complete the look. Someone paid a premium to make their living room look exactly like a cartoon from 1989. 81. The original Spider-Man suit worn by Tobey Maguire was sold for over $55,000. The catch? The winning bidder was a teenager who had secretly used his father's credit card. When Dad found out, the sale was promptly canceled, proving that with great credit card debt comes great parental responsibility. 82. Legendary musician Weird Al Yankovic sold one of his personal iconic accordions to raise money for a cancer charity. It sold for over $7,000. It's one of the few items on this list that's both incredibly weird and genuinely wholesome. The buyer got a piece of comedy history and some good karma. 83. A single, discarded shopping list found in a grocery store parking lot was put up for auction. The seller claimed it offered a fascinating and poignant glimpse into a stranger's life. The list included milk, eggs, and the word sadness. It sold for $10. People will literally pay money for documented mundane misery. 84. While many pranksters have tried, one person successfully sold an actual legitimate private island on eBay. The 2-acre island, located in the Bahamas, sold for $2.2 million. It's a nice reminder that while some people are buying single Cheetos, others are adding entire land masses to their online shopping cart. 85. A single, leftover pizza crust, allegedly from a slice eaten by actor Macaulay Culkin, was sold for $30. The seller claimed to be a waiter who saved the crust from the actor's plate in the early 90s. That means a 30-year-old piece of celebrity-touched bread is now someone's prized possession. Home Alone, but with carbs. 86. The actual chest X-rays of Marilyn Monroe, taken in 1954, were sold at auction for $45,000. Someone paid the price of a luxury SUV to own a black-and-white image of a movie star's ribcage. It's a level of celebrity obsession that's both deeply weird and medically invasive. 87. A used rubber chicken, advertised as being violently haunted, was put up for sale by a paranormal investigator. He claimed it would squawk on its own and was possessed by a playful but annoying spirit named Alphonse. It sold for $125. That's a lot to pay for a poltergeist with a poultry problem. 88. A woman in California sold 4 empty toilet paper rolls for $5, marketing them as premium art and craft supplies. She even specified no paper remnants attached. So, someone paid actual money for a cardboard tube that literally everyone else on the planet just throws in the recycling bin. 89. A jar supposedly containing air captured from a red carpet event attended by Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie was sold for $530. The seller provided no proof, but someone still paid over $500 to own a glass jar of what is, essentially, just regular Hollywood smog. 90. The tiny town of Prairie, Montana, consisting of a general store, a post office, and one house, was sold on eBay for $1.4 million. The buyer was a food company that wanted to use the name. It's the ultimate corporate branding move. Don't just sponsor a town, buy it outright. 91. A 40-year-old Twinkie, kept as a science experiment by a high school teacher, was sold for over $100. Despite its age, it still looked disturbingly edible, proving that Twinkies are the cockroaches of the snack food world. The buyer got a piece of history and a potential stomachache. 92. A man from Florida listed his 3 inner demons for sale in separate sealed vials. He gave them names and backstories, claiming they were responsible for his bad habits. All 3 vials sold, meaning someone willingly paid to bring a stranger's metaphorical baggage into their actual home. 93. A librarian from Australia spent years collecting and cataloging his own belly button lint, sorting it by color and year. He sold the entire bizarre collection for an undisclosed sum to a museum. That's right, a jar of human navel fluff is now an official museum exhibit. 94. A bottle of Lowenbräu beer, allegedly recovered from the wreckage of the Hindenburg airship disaster in 1937, was sold for over $16,000. The buyer paid a small fortune for a beer that was likely flat, warm, and definitely associated with a massive fiery explosion. 95. A half-smoked cigar, discarded by British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, was picked up by a cinema usher in the 1950s and sold for over $12,000. Some wealthy history buff paid the price of a new car to own the soggy, chewed-up end of a politician's cigar. 96. A sentient jar of pickles was sold for $50. The seller claimed the pickles would whisper existential philosophy to him late at night, but he was tired of their sour outlook on life. The buyer probably just got a regular jar of Vlasics, but with a much better story attached. 97. A single, extremely rare dark green Lego Bionicle mask was sold for $33,000. It was a promotional item from 2001, making it one of the most expensive pieces of Lego ever sold. For that price, you could buy a real car instead of a tiny piece of plastic for a toy robot. 98. A bottle of water from the final day of operation for Disney's Splash Mountain ride was sold for $15,000. Some collector paid the price of an actual trip to Disney World for a bottle of glorified log flume backwash. That's one expensive souvenir. 99. A man in Washington auctioned off the naming rights for his firstborn son for $41,000. He promised to legally name his child whatever the winning bidder wanted, as long as it wasn't something completely obscene. Luckily for the kid, the winning bidder backed out. 100. A prankster once put the internet up for sale, promising the buyer full control of all online activities. The bidding, fueled by other pranksters, reached $1 million before eBay's staff had to step in and explain that, no, you cannot, in fact, purchase the entire World Wide Web. 101. The infamous baseball that rolled through Bill Buckner's legs in the 1986 World Series, one of the biggest blunders in sports history, was sold at auction for over $400,000. The buyer was actor Charlie Sheen, who paid a fortune to own a legendary symbol of failure. So tell me, what's the dumbest thing you've ever bought that made you question humanity? Or better yet, what insane item would you try to sell if it guaranteed a buyer? Drop it in the comments and let's see who'd win the world's dumbest auction. If you laughed, hit like. If you'd actually bid subscribe, you clearly belong here.